the Super Bowl.
Welcome to Patriots Touchback Podcast.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to another edition of the Patriots Touchback Podcast. It is episode 25. We are ready for brand new beginnings. It's me, your host, Carl. I am joined by my buddy, Nick. DJ and Luke can't be with us tonight. Hopefully, they'll be back with us next week. Nick, how has your week been?
It's been all right, thank you. All good, can't complain.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I am bunged up with cold, so I am trying my damn hardest to soldier my way through this. My little boy's not well either, so the entire Brooks household is full of flu and whatever bloody hell else we've got. But anyway, I digress. So today's episodes, we're going to talk about our brand new coaching hirings. Now, we spoke a little bit on it a couple of weeks ago on the post-mortem show, but we're going to go into more of a deep dive with it. So before we get cracking on with the show, make sure you smash the like button and you hit the subscribe button while you're at it. You tell all your friends and you follow us all on our social media platforms and on Spotify as well. Okay. So let's start off with the new head coaching role. It's, of course, Jared Mayo, who is stepping forward to take the mantle away where Bill Belichick has left. I think this was kind of written on the wall. Writing was on the wall already in regarding because what happened with the previous season, you know, he was the assistant coach to Bill Belichick, and you just kind of tell that already the process of Belichick moving on for someone to replace him was going to happen. And it was obviously Jared Mayo that took over. I don't have an issue with what he could bring. He is a defensive-minded coach. He's been linebackers coach in DC and so on. But what I am very interested in with is his signings that he has brought forward in regarding of his coaching staff as well. DeMarcus Covington, we said that he was a linebackers coach. He's now the DC. I think he deserves that opportunity because he did do a really, really good job along with Steve Belichick as well. Steve Belichick, on the other hand, though, is heading off to the University of Washington to be the DC there. Hopefully he succeeds. We wish Steve all the very, very best. But the biggest conundrum for us was who was going to be the offensive coordinator. And there was a number of people we were trying to go after. But we settled for Alex Van Pelt, who is a former OC, but he's also been a quarterbacks coach most of his career. He was with Cleveland and Cincinnati. So there is, the way, because he was on Cleveland's staff last year, they went through 4 different quarterbacks, still made it to the playoffs. You look at that and you think, if he can get Joe Flacco or Jacoby Brissett or whoever it was getting them in towards the playoff contention, then he has to have a punt worthwhile taking. What do you think of the hirings that we have? The main 3 I would start because they're the most important hirings of the lot.
Yeah. What I would say, just touching back on Jared Mayo, is that when he and Steve ran the defense for the past few years, Steve was all about the X's. They sort of like split the job in 2. And Steve was all about the X's and O's and, where people need to be in the actual plays where they were going to run. And he did the play calling. Whereas Gerard Mayo did a lot of the getting guys fired up, getting guys in the room, talking to the players and, helping them understand what Steve Belichick was asking them to do. And I think between him and Belichick, they actually made a really good team. Now, there was that thing about whether Steve was going to stay or whether, was Steve going to be the DC? And I think I read somewhere that had Belichick chosen to stay, he wouldn't have been the DC. That would have still been Covington, and Steve would have been promoted to assistant head coach. So he would have been Mayo's number 2, basically. And I don't think he wanted that, and I think that's why he looked to move on. Obviously, Brian Belichick didn't want to move. He's comfortable. He's got a young family settled, so he stayed on as our safeties coach. With regards to Covington, I've got let me find it. Yeah. Covington said in an interview, if not today, then it was yesterday, that he plans to call the plays. The defense is going to run similar to last year. They're going to be physical. They're going to be disciplined. And ultimately, he's going to make sure every player on his side of the ball has a togetherness, that it's, every man fights for everyone else, and there's no sort of single unit. And I think that's... I think the Patriots finished 7th overall as the 7th best defense last year. And how many times did we say about how the defense kept us in the game? We went through that period, where we lost 3-4 games in a row by 1 score, because our defense kept us in every single game. Even when we were losing to Philadelphia and Miami at the beginning of the season, our defense kept us in those games. So I think if Covington's going to get the same sort of response and the same sort of performance, then I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue from it. Mayo said on his coaches, he had a press conference at the Combine today. Obviously, because Covington's moved up to DC, Hightower's joined the coaching team as the linebackers coach, which Mayo
inside linebackers coach, to be precise, but carry on.
Hightower, apparently, he's always wanted to be a coach. For the past 5 years, he's been a coach on the field. We might as well make him a coach off the field. So I'm really glad that Hightower's joined the team. And Mayo just regards Van Pelt. Mayo said he understands the X's and O's. He can develop talent. He has extensive knowledge. And that essentially is moving on to Van Pelt. I think... It can't be any worse than we've seen recently, can it? So
it really can't. You can't go. You can. Well, I think we were second to last on offense total.
I know when you look.
So the only way. So
yeah. When you look at what he's done with Joe Burrow, and what he Cincinnati, and obviously he's worked at Cleveland as well. I think you have to sort of take him at face value and say he's got some knowledge there that he should be able to move us forward on that side of the ball.
How many games was it? How many games was it that we lost by 1 score? Was it 8 games?
Yeah, well, we lost 4 in a row by 1 score, didn't we?
Yeah, lost 4 in a row. I think it was like 7. I think it was like 8 games.
7 or 8 games. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just need this offense to be average. You just need this offense to be average, and you might squeak a wild card, you may not, but as long as Alex Van Pelt gives this offense some sort of pulse, we'll be infinitely better. I just think I don't know. I can't see how this offense is going to be until we start seeing. Really, until training camp. You could go OTAs and mini camp and so on, but there's only so much you can take from that. Training camp is where you're going to start seeing where this offense is actually clicking. Because all we saw last year was the defense was just slapping the offense off with absolute ease in training camp. The offense was winning nothing. Mac Jones was not winning anything. So you could just tell that something went right. I want to see some reports in training camp that the offense actually bulldozed the defense. So it's going to be difficult. The other hire was I think he was quarterbacks coach, or he's not assistant head coach. I think he's quarterbacks coach. Is Ben McAdoo. So we already spoke about him a couple of weeks ago. He was particularly interested in Josh Allen when he was part of the New York Giants organization. He begged the Giants to trade up and go and get Josh Allen. They didn't. So as far as quarterback evaluating goes, he seems to have his finger on the pulse pretty well, considering the fact during that draft, he had Baker Mayfield as the 6th best quarterback in that draft, not senior offensive system. Thank you. So as far as quarterback evaluating is good, then fine. But we are in a position in the draft where, you know, if you have to look in hindsight, Caleb Williams is probably going to be off the board at 1. You're left with one of 2. You're left with the sexy, flashy pick in Jaden Daniels. You know, the modern day Michael Vick, the modern day RG3, the new modern day Lamar Jackson. Or do you go for
clarify,
go on.
You're not as a Wolverine, you're not wanting us to trade down for JJ McCarthy then?
Do I have to evict you off this stream?
Sorry, I apologize.
Listen, he is a game manager, okay? He ain't going to lead you anywhere. He's very athletic. I'm not going to just push him to one side. His athleticism is ridiculous. He is really good with his athleticism. But I just feel like
I think
the
Raiders
or JJ McCarthy. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. I just think you can't pass this up. And yes, that we've seen trades left, right, and center where we could trade down positions and we could take Marvin Harrison at 3 instead of going for a quarterback and going and hopefully hanging on to getting a second rounder for, I don't know, Bo Nix or Michael Penix or something like that. But I just feel I don't know when the next great quarterback class is going to come up. I really don't.
No.
But then you look to free agency, there isn't really much out there. There isn't. Baker Mayfield could get signed back with Tampa Bay, probably the only one. Kirk Cousins was a 2-year, $90 million deal. Where's he going to get that from? Don't know. The Vikings may just bleed through the nose and actually do it, but they have to pay Justin Jefferson at some point. And also the other one is Russell Wilson. I personally think Russell Wilson would probably be more suited to go to the Steelers because at least they have the weapons. They have part of the O-line. They have a good running game. They just don't have the quarterback. So that seems to be the better option. So you have to look to draft. I mean, unless you're going to make Mac Jones go through the gauntlet all over again with a 4th offensive coordinator.
No, from what I picked up based on listening and whatever else, I think Atlanta are favourites to trade for Fields, and the Bears are going to go for Caleb. I've got Washington taking Daniels at 2 and leaving us with May at 3.
That I wouldn't have an issue with. I would not have an issue with that.
I've said on this podcast, I know Luke's been quite happy to go against me, but I've been one to trade down. You know, we've got far too many holes, we've got far too many needs. Trade down and fill some gaps. But from listening to Elliot Wolf yesterday, listening to how he talked about Mac Jones, which didn't sound good. I think we're taking a QB at 3. So it'll be best of who's left, whether it's Daniels or whether it's May. I don't know. Like I said,
the comparison I will give Drake May is Josh Allen. That's the comparison. Very athletic, cannon of an arm, but it was very, very inconsistent with throwing the ball. When he played against the better teams, he was quite inconsistent. He may hit players with pinpoint precision, but then he'll overthrow his receiver by 20 yards. And that's where we've got to develop him to be more precise with the ball. I think he is
And
a
that
Josh.
comes back
I
to
think
your
he is a Josh
coaches.
Allen comparison.
Yeah, that comes back to your coaches because obviously we talked about Ben McAdoo. I've just looked at a list here. Ben McAdoo will be a senior offensive assistant. Bob Bicknell will be our tight ends coach. Taylor Embry will be our running backs coach. Tyler Hughes will be our wide receivers coach. Assistant offensive line coach will be Robert Kugler. Quality control coach Michael McCarthy, sorry.
Not my.
Quarterbacks coach will be not that one, the other
Not
one.
that one.
TC McCartney will be our quarterbacks coach. And then assistant wide receivers coach will be Tyquan Underwood. So there's a lot of coaches coming in on that offensive line. Jared Mayo's really stamped his own touch. A few of them he knows from playing days. A few of them he knows from college days. So, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
But
Why
Elliot
have
Wolf's-
we? Yeah. Go on, carry on.
I was just going to say, Elliot Wolf on Mac Jones. He said about someone asked him about what's he looking for in a QB, and he said all options are on the table. He said what I'm looking for in a QB is leadership, someone to elevate teammates, somebody who's not going to shout and scream when it's not going their way. Oh, I wonder who did that this last year.
Oh, yeah, that's
off the bench effing and jeffing because it wasn't going his way.
No, that's not throwing him off a bus. That's not throwing Mac Jones off a bus. That's throwing Mac Jones off a cliff. Yeah. I'm just trying to. I'm going to bring up the article now on the Patriots site, so please bear with me a second. Anyhow,
I quite like their attitude now is that they're going to draft and develop. Mayo said that things are going to be different. And that's not criticizing Bill Belichick, and he's not taking pot shots at him. He's just saying it's going to be different. I think it talks about like the media. All the coach, apparently Mayo said to the media, all the coaches will be available to the media. All the coaches will have relationships in the media. This is different. This is nothing we have, we haven't seen
how many
this.
times did we put ourselves on repeat throughout last season regarding of the modern day of the NFL where you have to be more player friendly. You have to be more inclusive to the media now. You can't just be two fingers up to the media anymore. Now you can't do that anymore. It's it's a different. We're in a different era of the NFL, and you have to be more. You have to be more streetwise now than compared to what you could have been in the olden days.
They talk about that in the Dynasty series, in the Spygate episode. They talk about how Bill was burnt by all the Eric Mangiani stuff that came out around then, and it was then that Bill started circling the wagons and started keeping his friends close and his enemies even closer, and
even closer. Yeah,
he started changing and becoming very difficult. And so I think we're gonna see. This is going to be a new Patriots. It's going to be a very new Patriots. So I'm all for it. I'm up for it. Let's go.
Absolutely. So, right. So let me just get. Hopefully this will work. Stop screen. Present. Right. Let's try again. So what I'm going to do is going to share the screen up on. There we go. So it should come up now. Should work. Can you see the screen? Okay.
I can. Yes.
I'd say that's yes. So basically, this is what they said. Armed with a projected 75.9 million. And before we get into that, 75.9 million, that's a lot of money. But that could shoot up to around about 90 million if you cut. Have we cut JC Jackson?
87.3. No, not if you cut JC Jackson. You get more from that. Obviously, that was based on a smaller salary cap when they announced the salary cap yesterday. I our cap space went up to 87.3. Obviously, if we release JC Jackson, we'll go up to 90 odd, I think.
Yeah, so Patriots haven't had good fortune lately in adhering to these sorts of principles. We've got the 5th most cap. New England's expected to be aggressive in upgrading their roster. So they're asking, how will Wolves' team building tactics differ from the Packer way? He's basically saying at the core is draft and develop. There's different ways throughout the year to supplement the team. We aren't going to do free agent. You're doing yourself a disservice if you just say, "Oh, we aren't going to do free agency this year." As we ascend in this program, there'll be times when it maybe doesn't make sense to sign as many high-priced free agents, but we have the resources and we have a lot of improvements needed within the roster.
Which is what I said about trading down. You've got that many holes in the roster that you need. You know, it seems silly, but he says there about focusing on re-signing Kyle Duggar. We need to sign that guy. We seriously.
And Onwenu.
I don't care what.
No,
Onwenu's
our best tackle. Onwenu's our best tackle by a country mile. And he is a right guard, as Evan Lazar has always said. He is a right guard. But if you want to pay Onwenu, you've got to pay him tackle money. You've got no choice. You have to pay him tackle money. You can't just pay him guard money if you're moving him into that position on a permanent basis. Talks about we'd love to keep those guys. They're part of our core. We're excited to continue to work and with them to make that happen. I would say the franchise tag is an option. We'll keep our options open. I would probably say franchise tag Kyle Duggar and pay Onwenu. I think you can get a deal done you still can get a deal done in the offseason with Kyle Duggar, I think, personally, in my opinion, unless you disagree.
No, I think obviously Onwenu's just fired his agents. He's now unrepresented. So I don't know whether he's done that because he was unhappy at what they were trying to do, or whether he's said to them, "I want to stay at the Patriots," and then they've tried to bleed the Patriots for a bit more money, and he hasn't liked that. But he announced yesterday that he's parted ways with his agent. So I don't know whether that makes it easier or harder to get a deal done. But again, we've got all these needs. So going out and blowing your cap on 3-4 players, high quality players, doesn't make sense. You really probably. We're now paying for 10 years of poor draft quality. This is where we are getting.
This is where we're at now. Yeah.
So in small steps, you're probably gonna rather than sort of buying top quality, stuff from John Lewis, you've probably got to go. I'm not saying we're shopping at Lidl, but we probably need to find.
Nothing wrong with Lidl. There's nothing wrong with Lidl. Shut up.
I know there's nothing wrong with Lidl. I was trying to make a comparison between John Lewis and somewhere further down, but I think we'll probably have to shop in the middle for a bit. There's nothing wrong with Lidl. There's nothing wrong with Aldi. There's nothing wrong with.
I know.
I'm not sponsored by any of these supermarkets, although I'm quite happy.
No, we haven't. No, we can't make that sort of money yet. Okay, so Wolf also confirmed that Patriots will be changing their grading system, going from role-specific grading to more of a value-based scale. They said New England will stack players differently rather than focus on how players fill a specific role in former head coach Bill Belichick's system. Wolf said, we changed the grading system. It's similar to what we did in Green Bay. The previous Patriot system was more, this is what the role is. If this is more kind of value-based, it makes it a lot easier for scouts to rate guys and put them in a stack of this guy's the best, this guy is the worst, and everything in between falls into place. This is good to hear, because if there's one thing that Belichick never did was analytics. It's basically saying if I like the cut of your jib, you're actually you're a Patriot. Not to do with speed or route running or precision or anything like that. it was Belichick's way or the highway. And as you said, that's what's led us to having 10 years of absolute shocking drafting. There have been some draft picks that we've landed and that have worked, but I'll probably say about 70% of them haven't worked. As for working with new coaching staff, offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt has an established system where he might favor certain types of players that fit his schemes. For example, New England expects to lean more into an outside zone rushing attack, which often lends itself to athletic offensive tackles who can block the move. So you're looking at that already, goes, okay, so you need a running back that runs on the outside. Well, that's not Ramondre Stevenson, is it?
No, but running backs are 10 a penny right now. You can pick some quality running backs up that are undrafted. Running back doesn't worry me.
No, you can pick up a running back anytime. I mean, but yeah.
We've got those holes in it. We've got those holes. Trent Brown's has announced he's leaving. I think he's announced he's leaving before we've announced he's leaving, because otherwise. So you've got a huge gaping hole at left tackle. And when I say huge, Trent Brown is huge. So that's a big hole to fill. Got a huge hole to fill at left tackle. Strange, I assume, is over his injury. So that's left guard. I don't know whether David Andrews is going to continue. Is Jake Andrews ready to step up? I don't know. So that's possibly, you might need an experienced centre. If Owenyu's being kicked out to right tackle and being kept, you've got a hole in right guard, which, who was doing it? Was it Matthew? Sidney So.
No, it was Maffey, and then he got injured, and then Sidney So stepped in.
So
I could be wrong.
There's holes across that O-line. We've talked about the wide receivers, how we're paying for poor wide receiver talent. So there's that many holes that you're going to see some names appear at the Patriots, and you just wonder why him. But that's where we are. So
that's where we are right now. Yeah. So the key is working backwards. So first we identify who the really good players are in the draft and in free agency, and we work backwards in terms of whether they fit what we want. Are they the type of player we want first and foremost? Then are they somebody that can fit in our scheme and do well? The coaching staff at every position is going to play a big role. We don't want to force players on them that they don't like. You've already spoken about the quarterbacks already, and yeah, we've already... He said durability is really important. Well, so there goes Mac Jones out the window then. So if he was to take the quarterback at 3, Jaden Daniels is very, very elusive, we know. And actually, Drake Mayer's got a good set of wheels on him as well. So there's your durability right there. As things develop in Indianapolis this week, many of the top prospects in this year's draft are opting out of an on-field workouts at the Combine, including top quarterbacks Kelly Williams, Jaden Daniels, and projected top 5 pick wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. For a team like the Patriots picking at the top of the draft, how does that impact their evaluations of these prospects? And Wolf basically just said it doesn't.
No, I think you've done all your homework by now. The physical homework is in the bag. It's all about meeting the guys, getting to know them, speaking to them, and they're turning up at the Combine to do that. They're not taking part physically, but they are there to. I believe Caleb Williams spoke with 8 teams today, so I think they're going to get what they need this week from the players when they speak to them and get their characteristics and get their personal style, but. Yeah, it doesn't bother me that the top 3 quarterbacks aren't going to throw. It gives the other guys chance to show their talents. If
yeah, they said for the Patriots' new head coach and top personnel executive, changing the culture of a 4-win football team is a top priority under the new regime. However, at the end of the day, New England will only get back to winning football games if they pick the right players. Wolves' extensive experience in scouting and messaging is a source of optimism for the Patriots moving forward, but he'll be judged, like Mayo, by the product on the field. To that point, Wolves set an expectation that he's hoping the Patriots will be on the field in the 24th season. He says, I think showing good progress in terms of turning the culture around and competing for the playoffs is something we aren't going to shy away from. So that's Wolf is basically saying the right things there.
So what do you expect from 2024? Where are you in this year's or this upcoming next season's performance? What do you want to see?
I'll look at this, okay? I'm not just going to throw the baby out with the bathwater on the first try, on the first go. I'm not, because that would just be me being a complete selfish fan, right? So I actually spoke to someone who is a Detroit Lions fan, and they basically said they didn't flip their lid when after the start of the second season, Detroit went 1-6. They didn't stray from the path. They didn't stray from the plan that they had in place. As I said, I will give Gerard Mayo 2 years to implement the culture, implement the style that he wants in this team. And then in the third year, we start expecting, start getting us back into the playoffs, start getting us back to competing properly again. Anything more than 4 wins is a bonus. As far, it is progress as far as I'm concerned. But for us just to go from where we were up back into the playoff contention, it's just so unrealistic. As I said, I think
playoff. Go on, sorry.
I think 7 wins, probably 6. Yeah, probably about 7 wins would be. I think it will be a fairly good start, but then you have to build from that. You may never know. You may never know with Wolf. He may decide to get Drake May, go and get one of the stud tackles in the second round, probably someone like Tyler Guyton or Patrick Paul, one of those two. And then in the third round, go and take a receiver that's very underrated, but ends up lighting it up. And maybe all the dominoes could fall into one and we end up shooting back up to the stars again. I don't see it happening. That only happens once in a blue moon. That probably happened last year with Houston. So look, I give Gerard Mayo time, okay? Rookie head coach. Give him time to implement what he is trying to do. But this defense just needs to stay as it was last year. Maybe even go better. Maybe be top 3 defense. With with our best corner and our best pass rusher. So, as I said, you only need this offense to be average. But if we get this Jaden Daniels or we get Drake May in the draft and he ends up bombing, he ends up taking us into the stratosphere again and playing, wow, where's this kid's absolutely unbelievable. Then you could start getting a little bit giddy and thinking maybe we can make the playoffs with this quarterback. But you don't know until you can see the product on the field. This is why I say give Gerard Mayo time. If we end up with a 6-11 season or a 7-10 season, don't throw your dummies out the pram just because we've only been a little bit better than the following year. This is a new regime. It's going to take time.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you want to assess that improvement. For example, we finished bottom of the conference. We finished bottom of the division and bottom of our conference. So, if finishing anything other than bottom of the division and bottom of the conference is an improvement. You talk about how bad we were on offense and how we were the worst offense in however many stats, and if you're not that and you can improve, and you can improve in the stats, I think I don't want to say baby steps, but don't run before you can walk.
Mm-hmm.
Just take, like you said, take your time, build correctly before, and just don't worry about trying to jump too many many steps at once. Like you said, I think if you can double your amount of wins and be at six wins or 7 wins, look, and the offense is improved and is not bottom of the stats and whatever else, I think you've got to take that and say we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, as I said, we've already got some solid pieces on defense. I mean, if we can tidy up the special teams unit, because that was an absolute nightmare for us last season. You tidy up the special teams unit, and then, but it's the offense is the focal point. That's the one I'll be keeping a very, very, very close eye on. I think every Patriots fan will be looking at the offense on the offensive side of the ball, because they know that the defensive side is in good hands. And it's still roughly around the same sort of people that actually helped run that defense. So I don't think we're going to be too bothered about that. We will have to still make 1 or 2 picks in the draft, i.e. take another corner, take another linebacker, maybe grab a pass rusher. But yeah, I'm not just going to really to go completely mental this coming season and just say, if we get 6 wins, nobody deserves to go. No, you can't do that. Robert Kraft knows now that he has to be patient with Jared Mayo. He can't just expect victories and AFC championships and Super Bowls within a click of his fingers. He can't ask for that. That's not how building a culture works. It's not how building a brand new team works. Because that's what we're doing here. We're building a brand new team. And it's going to take us years. How many years did it take Buffalo? 3-4 years before they eventually started to become the powerhouse that they are now? You have to give Jared Mayo time. You just have to.
There was a question on Patriots Unfiltered yesterday. And I know I've teased you about JJ McCarthy already, so I really don't want to see you lose it. Right. If you were offered a 2nd rounder for Mr. Red Sleeves himself, Judon, would you trade him away for a 2nd rounder?
Hang on, say that again. I'm sorry, I misheard that. Say again.
If you were offered a 2nd round pick for Judon, would you trade away Judon for a 2nd rounder? Bearing in mind his age and the fact that he's going to want to be paid, he's not around for the rebuild in the long thing. A 2nd rounder would prove quite useful.
No. He's our only pass rusher. He is our only pass rusher. That's easier said than done, but we've got offensive line to fill. We got we've got offensive line to fill. We need playmakers. We need a quarterback.
I'm just posing the question. Paul Perillo said yeah, and I was quite shocked that he said yeah, and I was like, right, okay,
that's true. Talking of trades, so I've been watching over the last week when there's no smoke without fire, and I've been seeing a lot of Justin Jefferson trades going around. I don't think he's going nowhere, but the fact we've got some people, including Felger on the 98.5 radio show in Boston, WEEI, basically turned around and said, I would have Justin Jefferson all day long. And he basically saying we'll give up basically, but in order to get Justin Jefferson, you're going to need Minnesota to give up a haul. You're going to need, if they're going to go up to 3 to get their quarterback, they're going to have to give up the equivalent to basically what Carolina gave up to Chicago for. But I think it'll end up being the equivalent to like 3 firsts and a second, or 3 firsts and a third, plus Justin Jefferson. That could set your franchise back 5 to 10 years if you don't get it right. It's difficult though, because if you get a veteran quarterback, there's a good chance you're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3. But if you don't take a quarterback in free agency, you're going to probably take one in your position. And Marvin Harrison will drop to, he won't drop far. He'll probably drop to Arizona, if I'm not mistaken.
To Arizona.
He'll probably go to Arizona.
I say, I've said this before. I would trade down and then trade down again and then trade down again, and I'd pick up pick after pick after pick to fill the gaps, and I'd pick up I'd trade for Justin Fields, or I'd pick up Jacoby Brissett, and I'd just do a year at that, or even a year with Russell Wilson. I'd consider all of them ahead of drafting a QB but that's just my opinion. I feel, based on what I've read from and listened to Wolf, and the Patriots going to pick a QB at 3. They ain't moving. It's May or it's Daniels to run the Patriots. That's the way it's going to be.
What a curveball it'll be if Chicago decided to take Daniels or May. That would be a curveball. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening.
Taking Williams
because
he's
they take
far ahead of everybody. I mean, it is literally like Williams, and then everybody below him. He's on his own pedestal.
Put it this way, though: if he's going to he will go to Chicago. Chicago can't develop quarterbacks. They had Justin Fields, who is a talent. Unfortunately, they couldn't get anything out of him. That's probably due to the fault of the organization. Caleb Williams just reminds me, yes, his athletic ability is fantastic. His throwing is unprecedented. But his mental side of things, I don't know. Just gives me Johnny Manziel vibes. Where it does. You can clip this if you want to. But I just don't know. Whereas Jaden Daniels, we know what his comparison is. We know what Jaden Daniels' comparison. He's Lamar Jackson with a much bigger arm. If you watch any of the highlights of him at LSU for this year, go check his highlights out, because Jesus Christ, this kid is unbelievable. And as I said, Drake May, his comparison is either Justin Herbert or Josh Allen. He's one of those two. He's 6'4", 6'5". He's got great athleticism on him, but he's got a cannon of an arm on him. If Drake May does come to us, though, he's got no one to throw to. So unless you're just going to be a glorified running back, which is probably not the best idea to do. So yeah, look, the options are on the table for us. I think, look, free agency starts in 3-4 weeks, something along those lines. We'll find out what we're going to do. Whether or not we sign anybody up, or we take a veteran receiver. I mean, I did see the post someone put out saying that the Bucs are trying their damn hardest to keep hold of, trying to re-sign Mike Evans as well as sign Baker Mayfield. But the way they're situated right now, it looks like they can either sign both of them or sign neither. Because Mike Evans basically said, I want to go where Baker Mayfield goes. Seem to have a chemistry, seem to have some repertoire about it all. But listen, if T. Higgins we know is going to get franchise tagged, he's got pissed about it already. So look out for the holdout. That ain't going to bother Cincinnati. They got Jamar Chase. Yeah, that's not going to bother them at all. I just don't know where this is all going to pan out. All I say is if you re-sign the players that you need to re-sign on our roster, then think about where we can go next. Could you get another swing tackle? Could you get another linebacker? Could you get a pass rusher? You know, the possibilities are endless with free agency. But that's why this season is so critical in this franchise. It's not so much as that you got to land every single pick, but you have got to be at least 90% correct on everything here. Because we can't keep stumbling all the time. We just can't.
Fully agree with you.
Right. One last thing we're going to do before we get on out of here. So, anyone who has followed, I'm just going to bring this up now. Hopefully you can all see. It's all ready to go. So basically, everybody knows who Peter King is. Fantastic journalist, NFL insider, part of Pro Football Talk. Decades and decades and decades of experience. He's now hanging up the microphone. And he is now retiring, we wish him all the best, Peter King. However, this got brought to light. So on a show called Maggie and Perloff, I've never heard him before, probably another podcast in the US. Peter King explained something which we as Patriots fans, we knew this was bullshit from the start. But we had no validation or there was no evidence to say that it was or that it did or did not happen. I want everyone on Spotify, have a listen to this. On YouTube, have a watch of this.
Probably the biggest mistake I made in my career that I regret to this day. When I think about it, my heart sinks. Is I confirmed the ESPN story about the deflated footballs after Deflategate first hit the scene. It was a Monday night, and I called two people who I was sure would know exactly what happened. And they both confirmed the ESPN story. And so I wrote it, talked about it, and it turns out I was wrong. And that brought me a lot of shame. And that really bothers me to this day that I was wrong, because it doesn't matter that who I talked to. It doesn't matter who told me anything. It's my rear end on the line when I say something, when I confirm a story, and I was wrong. And that's something that will haunt me, really. It bothers me, literally bothers me to this day. But having said that, I've always thought that in that case, that was Roger Goodell killing an ant with a sledgehammer. Because I wrote this at the time that Tom Brady, for the previous 10 years, had been allowed, when he had home games, his equipment guys had control of the footballs. And when you go on the road, your equipment guys didn't have control of the football. I figured out that his passer rating in away games and in home games over that 10-year period. And it was something like 99.8 to 99.5. It was the same.
Yeah.
It was the same. And what really ticked me off about that is that, Roger Goodell commissions this study, and the study says it's more likely than not that Brady had a role in these footballs being doctored with. Well, first of all, it didn't mean anything in the first place. And second of all, you don't have absolute proof that he did have something to do with it. That always really bothered me a lot, both ways. Me screwing it up, and I think the NFL screwing up the discipline. Probably the biggest.
That is a lot to unpack there for what Peter King said. I mean, everything he kind of said there was basically saying that it was completely and utterly fabricated, which we all knew as fans. We all knew as fans it was completely and utterly fabricated, because it's saying deflate football's fine, and Colts fans losing their marbles over it because we cheated. Well, explain how LeGarrette Blount ran for over 300 yards on you rushing the ball.
Well, it's not about the Colts, is it? It's about, if you go further enough back, it's about the Ravens the previous week getting bitchy. Let's be honest, right? Because if you remember, Belichick lined the Patriots up completely off he had all the players on one side, and then he had the actual line, and the way he lined everything up. And then Tom Brady threw a side pass to Edelman, who then launched it over everybody. And was it Danny Amendola that caught it, I think?
Playoff Danny.
Yeah, and he caught it, ran it into the air, and the Ravens were kicking and screaming that it was an illegal move, and Belichick, no, read the rules. Because Belichick knew the rules, because Belichick's smart and clever about what he does. And the Ravens got bitchy about it, and then apparently one of the Ravens players who was friendly with one of the Colts players said something and said, "Oh, keep an eye on whatever." And it was the Ravens getting bitchy that got the Colts switched on, and then the Colts started moaning when they started losing. It, what's that saying about you? If you, it was in Batman. Forgive me because I'm not going to butcher it because I can't remember it exactly. But the Batman says something about if you live long enough, if you live long enough, people will learn to hate you, and you'll live
something along those lines.
whatever that quote is. And that's effectively what happened to the Patriots. We were a bunch of nobodies. We won one, and then we kept winning, and everyone didn't like it. And what's happening to the Chiefs right now? Nobody likes it because they keep winning. And the Chiefs are here to stay. And I hate it. I really do.
We hate it because we hate it. But listen, we hate it, but you have to respect it because we've done it. We've done it. So we respect what the Chiefs are doing. We didn't think it would ever happen again, but love and but look what's happened. But yeah, carry on.
I just think, Peter King fell out with Belichick over that report. I mean, he doesn't say it in that interview there, but I remember him talking to Mike Florio on PFT one day. This was only a couple of months ago, and he was saying about how that story that he wrote about Deflategate, just ruined his and Belichick's relationship because that was already on rocky ground from Spygate. From the Spygate report that he wrote, and Belichick didn't like that, and that's what I said to you about Belichick then after Spygate circled the wagons and started closing himself off to the media. So King was already on rocky ground then, and then he did that report, and him and Belichick just did, and I don't think Belichick ever spoke to Peter King after that. But
not a it over.
So it's gone. There's nothing you can do about it. Goodell's not going to turn around and say, you know what, I was wrong. So you just move on and it's in the past. Wait for it on Dynasty.
Absolutely. We'll wait for it. We'll wait for it indeed. As I said, I haven't watched Dynasty yet because I've got Apple TV, but it might be my binge watch for this weekend just to catch up, and then we'll get into detail about it. Hopefully we'll find out what happened with the Malcolm Butler saga. But yeah, anyway. Right. We are going to get on out of here. Nick, absolute pleasure as always. Hopefully we'll have the entire crew back with us next week. We ain't going to do any mock drafts yet, guys, because we don't know what's going to happen to free agency yet. But we'll guarantee this. Once free agency is done and dusted, we will start our mock drafts. All four of us will be put under the spotlight or the master chair, whatever the mastermind's chair, whatever you want to call it. And everyone will get their crack at the mock draft on each episode. But for now, we're out of it. Thank you, everyone that's been watching. Make sure you smash the like button on your way out. Hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Tell all your friends. Follow us on Spotify and follow us on all our social media platforms as well. We are out of here, and we'll be back next week for another show. Thanks, Nick. New dawn, new beginning, new era. Go Patriots. Let's fucking go.